Now that we've revealed our EV of the year, we're going to talk about one or two cars that won our hearts and maybe not the overall win award. One of those is the F-150 Lightning, which you can click the description box below to see. And then my pick was the Hyundai Ioniq 6 electrified streamliner, which I think is straight out of like
It's a
Cyberpunk.
sedan.
It's a sedan,
It's just,
but I
it's
think
not a,
it's
there's no, this electrified, whatever. It's just a sedan.
yep, and it's straight out of like 80s Cyberpunk. The rear three-quarter view is the best view of the car. I like all of the parametric pixels. I don't necessarily care for the front of the car as much. I prefer the Ioniq 5 there, but in the rear, parametric pixel me all the way with the big 70s 911 wing, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's beautiful. I don't think it's attractive that way. But you do notice it on the road. It is a car that you will churn and look at, just like the
That's
Ioniq. Just
damning
like the
with
Ioniq
faint
5.
praise.
Hey,
This
I
was your
know.
pick, Chad.
We have no. We have designer friends. We have designer friends who will tell you if you ask them directly if they would rather have somebody love their car, hate their car, or feel indifferent about their car. I can tell you the worst one of those three is the indifference. They would rather you vomit when you see their car than
They're going to sell a lot more indifferent cars than vomit cars. So
they are, but designers,
former.
but because designers have to then give way to engineers and aerodynamics and crash safety and X, Y, and Z, and that's how cars end up coming out. Like Mercedes EQS, that looks like a worn bar of soap. The Genesis, I'm sorry, not the Genesis, the Ioniq, the Hyundai, all the same company. Ioniq 6 has 361 miles of range if you get it in the version we tested, which is well over 4 miles per kilowatt hour. 18-inch wheels with aero covers.
They look fantastic too.
They actually look pretty good.
Wonderful wheels.
They're very good looking wheels in that car. Fits the whole vibe and also helps you get range, which we were talking about in another video, where smaller wheels kind of better.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons.
Yep. An okay front trunk, decent rear trunk storage, though not best in class, but a ton of room inside. I don't know how they do it. I mean, I do know how they do it, but there is so much rear leg room in this vehicle. It almost feels like it's a class.
But not a lot of headroom, unfortunately.
Yeah, the roof kind of slopes back. So if you're 6 feet tall like Craig, you might be a little narrow. I'm 5'10".
You might have to slouch just a little bit. It's not horrible.
I'm 5'10", so I don't have to slouch in it. But 235 kilowatt max charging, 10 to 80% in 18 minutes, 361 miles of range from the rear drive version. Plenty of power. You can get it with all-wheel drive and more stuff, but the sweet spot is the SE at 40. This SE
I
long
agree
range
to get the maximum range, because what other vehicle gets you 361 miles on a charge? That's a heroic number for what is a mass market, fairly affordable vehicle.
Yes. And
I mean, sure, you could get a Lucid Air or a Tesla Model S and have
Lucid
more range, but
and the Model 3, I believe, is more efficient per mile. The battery just isn't as big, but the new Highland Model 3 long range is 340 some miles. So you're still eking it out here. More performance with the Tesla, but if range is your thing, this is the way to go.
Hard to beat.
No wireless CarPlay or Android Auto, at least not yet, until it gets the updated infotainment system that Hyundai is rolling out. But it still has it as wired. It comes standard.
I actually prefer.
It seems to be more reliable. It seems more reliable.
It's quicker and has fewer problems.
Yeah. Also, it comes standard with most of the driver's assist stuff you want. Like, you can get the blind. I think the SE long range does have like blind spot monitoring, but it comes standard with the lane centering and adaptive cruise. So they're doing the Toyota approach, which is give you all the safety stuff, just give it to you, which is the way they should be doing business. I tend to like it a little better than Tesla's standard autopilot, because it'll re-engage automatically when you do a lane change in an autopilot, not FSD, but in an autopilot equipped Tesla. You have to re-enable autopilot each time. You don't have to do that here. So I kind of appreciate that. But otherwise, like, it's the looks. I mean, the people either like the looks or they don't, and the exterior. And I think there's a little weird sort of a swoop going on in profile that I don't necessarily care for. And in the lighter colors, I don't necessarily care for the black kind of rubbery piece across the front that actually houses all of the driver assist sensors.
There it is. Yeah,
there it is. In a darker color car, like the dark green or a black, you don't notice that as much. And then I think that's the way that I would go. I like this car a lot, and if you can get a good lease deal on it, you may want to consider it.
I'm surprised you picked the Ioniq 6 instead of the Ioniq 5 as your editor's choice, Chad. I much preferred the Ioniq 5 myself.
So you see, I think the Ioniq 6 drives better. I like the suspension tuning on the Ioniq 6 better. So
smaller wheels.
small. I've driven both. I've driven both the 18-inch wheels and the 20s, and I think the Ioniq 6 is a tiny bit stiffer. So it gives it a little bit more of a sports sedan feeling than I think the Ioniq 5 does. But yeah, that's why I went with that. Plus the better range. I don't need the SUV-ness that comes with the Ioniq 5.
Hatchback.
Though the Ioniq 5 hatchback, super hatch, lifted hatch, mega hatch, I don't know, like a mega power frunk, mega power hatch, is excellent. I mean, you can't go wrong with that either. And the EV6 is also, like, all three of those cars built on that platform are excellent. But if I could have one in my driveway, it'd be the Ioniq.
See, with the Ioniq, I thought the interior was the weakest of the EGMP cars, at least in the entry-level SE trim, you know, with the longest range. That
it's a little, in some parts it's a little plastic fantastic. And I agree with you, the little wings that are on the dash where the screens would go in other markets. I know why they're there, because it's cheaper to leave them there than it is to engineer a different part of the dash. The biggest technology thing that I don't like on the Ioniq 6 that I like on the Ioniq 5 is there's no heads-up display available on the Ioniq 6 at the top trim, because the rake of the windshield and the dash are just...
And they could have put the little combiner screen if they wanted, but then that's another component, something else to break and keep clean and worry about. So,
and in the Ioniq 5, at the higher spec, you can get the augmented reality navigation. So it's got the arrows that show you exactly which road to turn on and stuff, which is really clever. It's not a deal breaker for me, but it is something you should know if you haven't driven either and you're like, oh, I really like this heads-up display. Oh, I'm gonna get the Ioniq 6. You're gonna be disappointed when you get in the car and you can't find the button to turn it on. But we both spent some time in the car. I did a range test, which is exciting but boring because Craig is way more exciting than I am. So if you'd like to watch Craig's full take on the Ioniq 6, you should click on screen right now.
I highly recommend it.
I highly recommend it. I think that video is live. What if that video isn't live?
It's got to be live.
That would be a really weird call to action.
Something you can't click on.